What is up, everybody? Hoang Zero here, and today we are here with the BT8 tier list. Finally, I know you guys have been waiting for some content from me. I've been a little bit busy, but now we are finally here. I am joined today by my mod Zero. Zero, if you wanted to introduce yourself.
Hey, what's up, guys? It's Zero Raven.
All right, and so with all that being said, we are going to dive straight into the tier list with the deck that has been dominating the BT7 format pretty unquestionably, right? It is the blue hybrid deck. Now, there are two variants of blue hybrid we do want to split up here, and that is the stunned variant, or as we commonly call it nowadays, Chung blue, and there's also Magna Gurumon blue. And so the difference between that is Chung blue is a lot more about those floodgates, whereas Magna Gurumon blue is about going into the Magna Gurumon and bouncing in that multi-attacking off. So it's stunned blue. I think this is a B tier deck, which I know a lot of people, after having been playing BT7 for so long, it feels really weird to say that, I will say. But I actually do think this is a B tier deck. And the reason for that is because the primary mechanic of Chung Blue, which was focusing on the stun and the floodgates, it's not as effective in BT8 because of how the Jogress or the DNA Digivolution mechanic works. When you Jogress, you fuse two Digimon together and they become an entirely new Digimon, which means all pre-existing effects, whether positive or negative, will no longer apply to that Digimon. So any stun that you may have applied to their Mons will no longer apply. And that's a really, really huge nerf to Chung Blue, I feel like. What do you think, Zero?
I agree. The one thing about this deck is that as with our hybrid deck, their security is fairly weak, right? Like, their security is generally not going to kill you. Anything threatening from a hybrid deck security usually come in the form of a tamer dropping, and the tamer giving them advantage over the next few turns. And that's like you hit a Tommy or something. If you're playing red hybrid, for example, you lose such a security stack, and then like the Tommy can start stunning your board. Well, into Jogress as a mechanic, this is much less effective because one, Jogress stack in general are a little bit bigger, just enough to where is much more annoying for you to fully shred a Jogress stack and stun them. And in the case of into like some of the better Jogress stack you can see in the format, like Master and Imperial, they just simply don't care about you playing the Tommy and so on. So I think the deck power overall is just gonna be much weaker than what we're seeing so far.
Yeah. And so coming up next, we do have Lord Knightmon, which was the dominant deck of the BT5 format. I know a lot of people still love this deck to this very day, trying to make it work in BT7 with the Electric Rush and everything like that. So with Lord Knightmon, I think Lord Knightmon will also be a B tier deck. And the reason for that, the biggest reason, is because Lord Knightmon plays really well with the Jogress mechanic. Being able to call out multiple Digimons, specifically with the Electric Rush especially, if you call out double Gladimon, those Gladimons can then become a Chimeramon for 0, which will then DP reduce the entire opponent's board, and then you can turn that Chimeramon into another level 6. So you can create a sort of yellow toolbox-esque effect. You can also try Sylphimon Lord Knightmon as well, which I've seen a couple of variants flying around here and there. What do you think?
Yeah, generally I agree. As many people who has played this deck, the main weakness of this deck generally is that if you don't see your Knightmon, your turn is much less effective, right? Like, you are very reliant on seeing Knightmon as your pieces. And we've all had games where if you draw your Knightmons, you're only level 5, and you evolve into Lord Knight, your first turn with your level 6 is much weaker because you're only able to play a level 3 for free, so on, right? Or maybe a level 4 if you play his entire line. With Chimeramon being a Jogress deck will go over any 2 level 4, makes this card a lot more effective. Also, Chimera has inherent synergy because it gives minus DP, and yellow has minus DP in stride, so you can combine that kind of play with other minus DP cards to remove much bigger Digimon than you could before. So this deck is a little bit better than it is right now in BT07. And yeah, I think even in BT07, you can say this is like a B tier deck.
Yeah. So even in BT7, because you have the Electric Rush and everything like that, you are able to flood the board by quite a bit, and then it would be difficult for Blue to stun everything. And that was one of the main, pros to playing Lord Knightmon in BT7, and it only gets better in BT8. So for you all that try and play Lord Knightmon, Chimeramon is a really great buff to this deck. But now another deck that is a fan favorite, especially against certain players like Diego or Battle or Ying or Human, Lilith Loop. Lilith Loop is a very, very interesting case because it just refuses to die no matter how bad the format seems to be for it. Lilith Loop had a very, very bad blue hybrid matchup, and despite that, it was still able to perform very, very well. And so going into the BT8 format, Lilith Loop does receive a few new tools, specifically in the form of the Mastermon support, right? We have a new yellow-purple card, Kyukimon. Kyukimon is a yellow-purple level 5, and that's really great because if you call it off your resort, that can then extend into another Mastermon. So I think normal loop, I'm not sure how that will perform, but I think Master Loop potentially has some room to get a couple results here and there. What do you think?
I am not sure on the state of this deck. To be honest, I think the Ice One engine hit was a huge hit to the deck. The overall consistency booster it got from the Ice One engine was a huge reason why this deck is so successful. It's probably still very viable, but realistically, I don't see a huge amount of merit to playing this deck because of how skill intensive it can be.
Yeah.
You have so many action per turn, right? And then what comes with that is the more opportunity to misplay, and I'm not sure with the lower power ceiling of this deck and how inconsistent it can be. I'm not sure it's worth it to play in BT8. It is going to get more support as we go into EX2 and future sets, so it could just be a deck that you shelf for later. But it's probably, I think B tier is fine.
Yeah. Alright, and then coming up next, we have one of the featured decks of BT6, which is Agubond, Bond of Bravery. And so Agubond fell off a little bit in the BT7 format, right? It was really hyped up in BT6, fell off a tad in BT7, although we did see a couple results with it in the form of a yellow hybrid Agubond. That was interesting. And so going into the BT8 format, because of the existence of Black War Greymon, who we'll talk about in a bit, Black War Greymon really hurts the performance of 3-cost tamer style of decks like the Bonds. And so because of Black War Greymon's presence in the meta, it's really hard for me to rate Agubond anything above C, just because hypothetically if you did want to play Agubond, if you run into the Black War Greymon player, then it's GG.
Yep. Not to mention Master has the ability to remove your tamer.
Yep.
So Master can build a board and remove your ability to warp if you only have one of the warp tamer. So that's another thing to consider.
And
so to add for this. So
previously in BT7, Agubond still arguably had the strongest turn 2 play, being Promo Greymon. It definitely had the strongest turn 2 play in BT6. In BT8, however, the strongest turn 2 play probably belongs to Imperial Ultramon now, been able to go into the Pyildramon if you roll high enough, really. So yeah, definitely it loses a lot of merits to play Agubond in the current format, but unlike Agubond, we do have Gabubond, who has a little bit more merit to him, being able to break Imperial Ultramon boards, bot decking anything Dragon Mode would call off, and then swinging over the Dragon Mode itself. However, like we said, Black War Greymon will just destroy all of your mats, and so because of that, it's really hard for us to put Gabubon anything above B tier.
Yeah, I agree. Blue suffer a little bit less than red in this kind of playstyle because blue in general, they draw more, so they have a more opportunity to their tamer that they need, but still suffer from the same issue like you mentioned. Your tamer get destroyed, your play that you have. Like Agubon's very low to the ground. Without the warp play, it really doesn't have much going for it.
Yeah, and then on a more fresh note, if you will, we've been talking about a lot of older decks, but now we have a new deck from the BT8 format. That is Mastermon from the Mastermon starter deck. Mastermon is one of the most hyped up decks we've seen in a very long while, given that it's a lot of fan favorite Digimon, right? You're seeing Magna Gurumon, Lucamon, Anshawomon, Lady Devimon, and of course Mastermon herself being played in this deck. I think this is pretty easily an A tier deck. It's really, really strong. There's a lot of different variations of Mastermon. There's a standard Mastermon where it's running, the purple yellow. We've also seen security control Maste. There's Maste Loop to some extent. There's just a lot of different variants of Mastermon. So it's a really versatile archetype in general, and overall the deck has really great things going for it, right? It has the ability to flood board, it has the ability to remove board, it has just strong control yet strong aggression.
Yeah, this deck is pretty good, like you mentioned. The only issue it has though is that it can be a little bit on the slow side, and especially because your ratio in this deck is generally going to be pretty awkward, and is more prone to bricking. And sometimes when you brick, your best play is often giving your opponent 6 memory, right? Which can be very scary, especially in this meta with Jogress being free. So giving your opponent a lot of memory in that sense can get you very heavily punished. So it's a little bit weaker into much faster deck. Although once it's stabilized, it's pretty difficult to beat.
Right.
Once Master start to stabilize, a lot of decks can have trouble breaking through their constant healing and access to really good security card.
Yeah, when Mastermon enters a grind game, it's really great. It outgrinds certain decks like Armor Rush, for example. It outgrinds certain yellow hybrid variants as well. But like Zero said, versus really strong aggression that doesn't lose steam like Imperial Ultramon, it can be very difficult. I do just want to note also, one of the other contributing factors as to why your Imperial Ultramon matchup is kind of difficult is because Hell Scythe does not kill... It doesn't kill Pyldramon. Pyldramon is an 8,000 DP Digimon. Flaming Hell Scythe only kills 6,000 DP or less. So because of that, Pyldramon will survive. It has jamming, then yeah, it's just really rough.
It doesn't kill any of that level.
I mean, it kills XVmon at least. So if you hit XVmon, then like that's pretty good. But aside from just Hell Scythe, you also do have Chaos Degradation, which is a very powerful option. The only issue is that it costs 8, so it is pretty hefty. It also is a dual colored option, so you need both purple and yellow in order to cast that option. Sometimes you don't have that, so do be aware of that. But that option is really strong, and it's your strongest answer to X-Antibody as well. Alright, moving forward, we do have 3 Musketeers Bellstar. So this deck will receive a very significant buff once EX2 rolls around, but until EX2, it's not exactly too hot, I would say. I think the biggest merit the deck has going for it is the fact that you can kill Pyldramon very easily. You have a lot of cards that will just snipe the Pyldramon out of nowhere, Fly Bullet, Happy Bullet, Showering, etc. And if you manage to kill their Pyldramon off the security, then it's a lot of tempo that swings into your favor. But otherwise, you're going to lose to decks like Mastermon, you're going to lose to decks like X-Antibody, which are both really strong tier 1 decks. So yeah, just overall, Bellstar has a niche in the meta. It's just not good enough of a niche. So I feel like it's probably going to be like towards the higher end of C. What do you think, Zero?
Wait till EX2. My only comment.
Okay. And so, following up on 3 Musketeers, we do have Red Hybrid. Red Hybrid is a very interesting deck because it didn't see a whole ton of success in the BT7 format for English, although there is a new variant of Red Hybrid that is going around. It is specifically Ancient One-Turn Kill Red Hybrid, and that version of Red Hybrid is super cool. It doesn't interact with your opponent. It's like a more consistent Jessmon, if you will. Both myself and Chungman have now, as of this video, have both topped with that deck. So I think it's a really good deck, personally. I'm a little bit biased towards it because I did play it. I think because of its nature of not interacting with your opponent, as long as your opponent doesn't roll you too fast, you do just have a direct line of eliminating your opponent completely. It's basically Jessmon. It's really just Jessmon.
Yeah, as someone who was unfortunate enough to be the test dummy.
Yeah.
Yeah, this deck is potentially very obnoxious when at high roll, because a lot of times they see their full line by turn 3 or 4, right? You can get burst down from 5 security to 0, and you don't hit anything particularly good. Well, actually, if they see the all die, you don't even have that opportunity.
Yeah.
To have a good security check, and sometimes if they see the full line plus Omnimon, you're just dead.
Yep.
We should be thankful this deck is in red, if it's in like a more consistent color, it
like
would be
blue,
quite,
yeah.
yeah, it would be so problematic. But because it's in red and it doesn't have access to a huge amount of card draw, and you're being forced to run consistency boosting pieces like memory boosts and so on, instead of better quality card just to be more aggro. It's a little bit weaker in that end because sometimes it does just brick and you don't do anything.
Alright, and so the next deck we do have up is the Machinedramon style of deck. Machinedramon is a huge fan favorite amongst the Digimon community, although time and time again it has not shown as much results as we'd want it to. There's not a lot that Machinedramon gains in the BT8 format. There's a few things.
One huge thing. It gained a very, very, very significant card.
Oh, it did. It did.
It gained the new Metal Greymon.
Yeah, new Metal Greymon is super insane. That card is absolutely cracked. Being able to de-digivolve your opponent's Digimon and then pop a Digimon that falls below a certain threshold is really, really strong. That is one of the hugest assets that Machinedramon did receive. It also contributes towards the Machinedramon, criteria. So, Machinedramon overall it's an interesting deck. That is the biggest buff it did receive, but I don't think it's a huge enough buff to swing it into the upper echelons of high tier.
It's like high C. You can
argue like low B maybe.
There's this. Okay, so the reason that the Metal Greymon is so significant in the deck is it allowed the deck to be more proactive. I don't know if have you played that deck much before, but the issue with the deck is you're stuck with Machinedramon, right? It's your main card, but it's this piece that you really can't play until you have all your pieces set up. Otherwise, it's just too low value, right? So you're dependent on another Digimon to be your main Digimon until you get to your setup. Because Metal Greymon is such a proactive level 5. Oh, and the other reason is because a lot of your level 5 pieces don't do anything. They're set up. They're like, oh, hey, I have a nice ESS is to benefit Machinedramon, but I don't do anything when I'm on level 5, you know? So I do think it does get a pretty nice boost. It's just the issue is I'm not sure how good it is into the meta because you also have deck like it would be better before. The issue is you have Master in the meta and Chaos Degrade will completely destroy this deck.
Yeah, definitely. It's definitely like really, really awkward. Does Machinedramon have anti-bouncing? I don't remember.
Not no, it can't be DP minus, and it can't when you
destroy
delete
it, right? Yeah.
When you delete it, it's stripped 2 source to remove the deletion.
So it would lose to Mega Death.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's okay. C tier.
Yeah, it loses to both Mega Death and Chaos Degrade, so that's an issue.
Yeah. Although so does X-Antibody, but we'll touch more on that in a bit. But a deck that my personal pet deck of the BT8 format is Ulforce Vigdramon, or Jelly Force as I like to call it. Everyone else will call me out on this one, but I think this deck is pretty hot. It's pretty dang hot, alright? You can't judge me. The gimmick behind Jelly Force is the new promo, which is Kiyoshiro with Jellymon and Kiyoshiro, something like that. It's the blue tamer from Ghost Game, and he states, when one of your Digimon swings and they have Jellymon in their source, tap this tamer and give that Digimon jamming. So not only is it a Ulforce Vigdramon proc, but it also gives Ulforce the jamming. So now you can run the security attack plus Digimon underneath it, and so you can actually just do some really, really cool Ulforce plays. Unfortunately, that tamer is a 3 cost, so Black War Greymon will just farm it. Not only that, but it's also very tamer reliant. It's just inherently slow. So realistically speaking, it's probably like a C tier deck. But that won't stop me from playing it. Zero, would you like to comment on my hype deck?
Blue just one.
Okay. Well, anywho, now we have Magna Gurumon Blue. So like we said previously, this is a little bit different from the stun variant of blue that everyone is familiar with. Lewis the Panda did pilot Magna Gurumon Blue to 3rd place at DigiFest Arlington, where he was just climbing like a regular deck, and that was pretty cool. Magna Gurumon Blue is more than likely going to fare better than the stun variant of blue because you rely less on those floodgates, less on the stun. However, you are still relying on a plethora of tamers, and Black War Greymon does really, really well into that kind of deck. So I think Magna Gurumon Blue is going to be above stun blue, but it's not going to break into tier 1 because not only are you weak to Imperial still, but also, like we said, Black War Greymon kind of gates you.
I think it also could run into potential issue with Yellow Hybrid.
Yeah, Yellow Hybrid will definitely also give it a lot of trouble. Both traditional Yellow Hybrid and Rapid Hybrid, right?
Yeah, but I do think the deck, if you're gonna play any variation of Blue Hybrid, I think this play it has a lot more merit, just because you do have the ability to bounce your opponent level 6, which will have a lot of value in this meta, because you have a lot of cards that's just like annoying to delete, or like you have cards like Oriomon that can be deleted, or you have cards that's like, well, you know, like can't minus DP and bounces get around a lot of that. So having access to the ability to bounce your opponent level 5 and level 6 is just really nice.
All right. And then the next deck we have coming up, it is Yellow Hybrid. This is the traditional form of Yellow Hybrid that we see very often, very akin to a style of security control, if you will. Yellow Hybrid is a very, very good deck. It's still going to see a lot of success. I know it didn't see a ton of success in BT7, which is really surprising to me personally, but I think going into the BT8 format, it should be very good. Having ways to DP reduce Imperial is a really huge thing, as well as Armor Rush. Imperial Ultramon and Armor Rush decks are very susceptible to DP reduction, and that's kind of where Yellow Hybrid will shine. Being able to hit them with the Wyvern's Breath if necessary, and other cards along the nature. So I think overall, Yellow Hybrid is probably going to be in Tier 1.
Well, another thing of note is that two of his worst matchup are significantly weaker in this meta. We previously talked about Little Loop getting the hit with Icemon, and as you recall, Little Loop would decimate this deck due to how slow it is. And, you know, Lilith would just go into the loop turn often and just win. Especially if you don't hit the right... you can hit your heal check from security, it won't do anything. You need specifically to hit a removal spell, right? Which is... make the matchup kind of stinky. And Cherubimon is also a really terrible matchup for this deck, because they just flood a board and you just die. And both of those decks are significantly weaker in this meta. So I think that's a big reason for it to go up in the tier list compared to BT7.
For sure, for sure. And then we do have Green Hybrid, and this Green Hybrid, it can be pure green, it can be red green, it can be blue green. It does not matter what variant of Green Hybrid you're playing. It's probably a C tier deck. It's honestly, it's probably down here. Yeah. So the issue with Green Hybrid, for one, you're probably slower than Imperial is, to be frank. Two, Ancient Troyamon feels really bad this format because of how Jogress works. And three, Green Hybrid was carried by the fact that it was a lot faster than the other hybrid decks. But now you have all these other fast decks, and it kind of just hurts the potency of the Green Hybrid deck. So Green Hybrid, unfortunately, will fall towards the bottom of Tier 3, in my opinion. Any comment on Green Hybrid?
I'm sad. I was playing Christmas. I was playing quite a bit of Christmas. And
Christmas is fun. Christmas is really fun.
Yeah, this just get farmed. I think it just get farmed by Imperial right now.
Yeah.
You have a terrible matchup into one of the best deck in the meta. It's just like,
Now you could play Green Hybrid Shiva. That is an option, and that might be a really good way to fix Green Hybrid's issues, because you know, just run cards that go fast, go into Shiva shuts stuff down. That might be a good solution. But you know, we can talk about Shiva more in a bit. The next deck we want to talk about is Cherubimon. Cherubimon is, I think, the most surprising deck out of the BT7 format. It was a deck that saw absolutely zero success in the Japanese format, and then with a little bit of copium from the Hoang Zero Discord, it actually became a Tier 1 deck. Cherubimon, wow.
Shout out to the Church of Cherubimon.
Yeah, the Church.
they literally coped this deck into existence.
Yeah, it just had such a good yellow hybrid matchup. People are actually saying it has a good blue hybrid matchup now too. But yeah,
interesting.
Yellow based Cherubimon is really, really strong. Unfortunately, yellow based Cherubimon absolutely gets destroyed by decks like Maste. It gets destroyed by decks like Imperial. It's just, in the slower format BT7 was, Cherubimon thrived, and now that the format is getting a tad faster than it previously was, Cherubimon is probably going to get ran down like a dog. Yes, you do get Rapidmon as a little bit of assistance, but I don't think that'll be enough.
Well, as mentioned previously, it also get destroyed by Imperial also.
Yeah.
Because one of the reasons this deck was also pretty good is because a lot of times you can sit your Cherubimon out, and your opponent just can't deal with it because they don't want to pop it, right? And they don't want to pop it and then burst the pinata and give you all the pieces. And then there's a lot of time you have time to find your pieces to let you self pop your Cherubi. The issue is let's count them up in BT8. What can happen to you? Imperial bounce you, Master Chaos Degrade. You get you can actually get bounced by Shaco.
Yeah, well, Shaco, assuming you're at 6, Shaco can bounce you. Yeah.
But this deck is super slow. It's very easy for Shaco to heal the 6.
Shiva denies any of your self-popping options, so if your Trubimon doesn't die, then Shiva is just going to run a train on you.
It can just swing into Shiva.
Yeah. But then you're it's probably not going to be a 1-for-1 because Shiva probably has all turns DP boost as well.
Yeah. It just has so much more problem dealing with this meta than the previous.
Yeah, so it's probably like a C tier deck.
Yeah, I argue it's probably worse than Green Hybrid position.
Honestly, yeah,
it's really bad. It's really slow.
All right, but
maybe there's more adaptation, but I can't think of anything that would make this.
Yeah. Just keep in mind, everyone, that this is a preliminary baseline list, and of course, things may change as the meta develops. Like random adaptations, like Chung Blue, for example, that happens again. But regardless, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. Coming up next, we do have Armor Rush. Armor Rush is one of the more interesting decks of the BT8 format. It is a very hyped up deck for those of you that did watch Digimon Adventure Season 2. Armor Rush is the new Rookie Rush, more or less, being able to swing at your opponent for a lot of aggression, and then if they were to die, you would just go back to your level 3. Armor Rush, though, in my opinion, I know a lot of people are going to call me out for this one, but I think Armor Rush is actually just a B tier deck. And so the reason why Armor Rush is a B tier deck is because, number one, you lose to DP reduction. So Hell Scythe, Silphymon, anything yellow related is going to give you trouble. 2, Pyildramon bot decks a lot of your cards. If it's not Magnamon, if it's not a juiced up Magnamon as well. Oh no, actually Magnamon's 7k. Okay. Magnamon is fine. Everyone else is not. Ragermon and Flamedramon will both get bot decked by the Pyildramon, which is it's pretty awkward. It's pretty darn awkward.
Yeah. Also, Rapid exists. Rapid is actually the bane of this deck.
Yeah, Rapidmon also just absolutely farms Armor Rush.
This deck used to have pretty favorable matchup into Yellow Hybrid, and then they made the Rapidmon adaptation, and this deck no longer beat Yellow Hybrid.
Yeah, it's pretty rough being an armor player out here. But regardless, it is still one of the most, if not the most aggressive deck in the format. And so, with that being said, in a tournament setting, if you open the nuts, then you're probably just gonna run your opponent down regardless. So it still deserves a spot within the higher B tier.
Yeah, it's just Rookie Rush, right? And it's fairly consistent.
Yeah.
The one thing you can say about this deck is that it's pretty consistent compared to some of the other decks on this list. So because it's so low to low down to the ground and more condensed compared to decks that have to go to level 6. I mean, you really don't have to see that many of your pieces to pop off.
I mean, you even have Mask Change to try and facilitate combo attacks to try and OTK your opponents. Like, that's pretty cool.
Yep.
All right, coming up next is the Silphymon Jagra style of deck. So Silphymon's actually a very, very interesting card. If you ever watched the original BT8 set reveal that we did, I said Silphymon is arguably one of the strongest cards in the set, and I still think that. Silphymon is absolutely fantastic into the upcoming Imperial Ultramon style of meta. Being able to DP reduce a good chunk of the board, Silphymon overall is a very, very strong card. Sylphy Vorg is a really potent deck.
Speaking of which, if you might not know, Sylphy Ward is my personal creation. When the card first came out, I did a lot of testing with Hayes and several other people in the Discord. And this is my copium. If Jellyforce is his copium, this is my copium. I made so many variations of this deck, and you're actually, due to how versatile this deck can be, you're actually able to make a lot of adaptation. You can run the new blue-yellow Angemon and use that as a Jogres piece. And you can run Shaco. You can also run both Shaco and Sylphy in the same list to give yourself a little bit more healing. And your top end is going to be War Greymon. And the way that you would play this deck is you would Jogres into Sylphy, remove most of their board, evolve into a War Greymon, remove the rest, and if you have the memory, you can even set up like a Lightning Joust play for your War Greymon will swing for multiple checks while removing your opponent entire board.
Yeah, and if you're asking, but what if you don't have any way to facilitate red to proc your options? You run Hero. You run the new red Memory Tamer Hero, because Hero gives you plus 2,000 DP on swing, and if you've ever played War Greymon style of decks, that's amazing. Being able to swing for a 13k War Greymon is absolutely huge.
Yep.
Now, unfortunately, the thing that does stop Sylphimon from being a tier 1 deck until further testing is it's a little bit inconsistent and it's very heavily reliant on seeing its specific matchups. And so because of that, I feel like it's probably going to be a upper B, although I can very easily see it being within the A tier region. For sure.
It really depends. This deck actually has excellent matchup into both Imperial and Armor. It's in general really good into any deck that just flip the board. It's just like the ultimate, I own the board deck, right?
Yeah.
The downside is your best option for level 6 is just Yellow War Greymon. Not a lot of the other level 6 is really good in the deck. Maybe that's not true with more testing, but in my testing, it just seems like War Greymon is War Greymon or bust, right? So if you don't see your War Greymon, it can be problematic ending games.
Yeah. Honestly, I would probably put Sylphimon over Armor Rush TBH.
Would you? I feel my reasoning for I personally would not do that.
Okay.
Is because I think this deck matchup into both Maste and Yellow Hybrid is for
it. Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, like you would do well if you run into both. Like if it depends on your local meta and it depends on the tournament meta. If the meta is heavy Imperial, heavy Armor, sure, take this deck. And you're likely to do pretty well if you just run into all of those. You're a good matchup, but you're gonna struggle to kill Maste, and you're gonna struggle to close game versus Yellow Hybrid.
That's very fair. Hey, I mean, this is your cope, so you can place it how you want. I respect that. But coming
I can only cope so far, man.
All right, so coming up next, we do have what is predicted to be the best deck in the format right out of the gates, which is Imperial Dramon. Imperial Dramon is insanely aggressive. It is insanely versatile in what it does. What if we take a green card and then make it as good as a blue card? That's really what they did. So having access to all of green's best qualities while all the consistent factors of blue, the deck's pretty good. Yes, it loses to DP reduction, for sure. Security bombs in general can be really frightening for this deck because you are pretty head first, but regardless, it is an extremely consistent deck. It has an insane ceiling. It has a really good floor. It's just overall a very strong deck. I think it's really hard to say that this is not the best deck in the format, right?
I think based on Japanese result, I know our meta is always a little bit different.
Yeah, no ice wall.
Because of, best of 1s versus best of 3 also, but based on Japanese result, based on testing. It's really hard to argue this being not the best deck in the format. I mean, being the best deck in format. I mean, it's really good. It's a very versatile deck. It's not linear like Armor. It has the hero potential of like an aggro deck like Armor, because potentially turn 2 you can go swing EX X-Vmon, Jogress into Pyojimon, do another 2 swing with jamming. Your opponent's on 2 security, and then you evolve into Imperial and you have 3 bodies on board, and they have to try to answer those 3 bodies on board while you have more time to set up, into more swings. So it's just one of those decks that it's pretty good at everything. It is generally you even have access to both Chimera and Fighter Mode. And because Chimera minus DP, that means that you're able to use Fighter Mode to remove a 12, 13, maybe even 14k Digimon.
13. Not 14. 14's a bit pushing it. That assume you have Flame Dramon in the stack, or Magnamon.
Yeah, I mean, if you can hit the 4 color though.
Yeah, well, that's just a bit. That's pretty niche. That's pretty niche.
Oh yeah, although that's not really not that many 14k target you would need to hit anyways. It's 13 or less.
Right. Okay. So coming up next, we do have what is predicted to be the best deck in the format right out of the gates, which is Imperial Dramon. Imperial Dramon is insanely aggressive. It is insanely versatile in what it does. Yes, it loses to DP reduction, for sure. So following up on all that praise and hype for Imperial, we do have Rapid Hybrid. So like we previously said, there is a bit of a difference between Yellow Hybrid, which is the BT7 standard, and then as well as Rapid Hybrid. Rapid Hybrid does have a lot less emphasis on security bombs than the standard Yellow Hybrid list does, but it does have the Rapidmon, who is an absolute monster when it comes to answering really strong boards. Rapidmon himself is able to take down a lot of level 6s in the game. It's a very low commitment level 3 as well, and it has the Armor Purge alongside it. So if you try and remove it, it will just go down to that level 3. Rapid Hybrid is probably it's probably up here. It's definitely up here.
Yeah, I can see it being top 3. The reasoning for this is I actually prefer this over standard Yellow Hybrid, for mostly because it's a lot more proactive. A lot of time you can pressure much more than the standard Yellow Hybrid and try to end game faster. Rapid itself, being an armored Digimon, it's just annoying to remove for a lot of matchups. So it is really good in that sense. And just one Rapid can remove a full Imperial board, which is such a powerful play. Your opponent as I mentioned previously, your opponent has their high roll play that you set up, that they set up and get 3 body on board. For your turn, you go into, you have Patamon, you move Patamon out, you go into your Rapid, delete the source, swing into the Imperial, and there you go, you clear the board.
Yeah. And then following up on Rapid Hybrid, we do have Chessmon, unfortunately. This is probably like the worst C tier deck in the format. It lost Savior, it's the best of 3. Everything just went wrong for Chessmon. We're gonna be in the starter deck 10 waiting room.
Just when Volcanic Drummon that level, just be like the worst red hybrid. Yeah,
Chessmon took a lot of L's. There's even a literal better version of it in the form of X-Antibody and Red Hybrid and BT7. Chessmon's not looking so hot. Wait until the new starter deck. Wait until Chessmon X is out. But hey, on a happier note, we do have Shaco Control, or just Shacomon style decks in general. Blue-yellow is a pretty disgusting combo. It's a lot of blue's consistency with yellow's recovery. This deck, it's very unexplored. In my personal opinion, I think Shaco is arguably the least explored deck of the format. It's really easy to build Imperial. It's not super hard to build Sylphie, but when you look at Shaco, you kind of look at it like, what's going on? Like, what's happening here?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of variant of it, and one of the popular variant I've seen is using the Imperial base, but you go into Shaco and you run like Angemon.
Yeah.
And you go, and you also have you play Chimera, and it just go into fighter mode. Remember that play I mentioned earlier using fighter mode to remove boar? Well, this you have access to Shacomon healing to bounce your opponent pieces, and then you also use Imperial to bounce other pieces. So it's just like, it's a lot of removal. It has quite a bit of healing, and because you're running like Imperial base, it has quite a bit of pressure too. It's a very interesting build. Yeah. I'm honestly not too sure on where to place this. My gut instinct is like it's high B.
Well, like you wouldn't be surprised if it was an A.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if more adaptation for this deck happen and it goes into A.
Yeah.
Currently, there's a lot of it's being tested and it's quite good. The only downside it has compared to Imperial is that it can be on the slow side.
Yeah, because you don't have Kyukimon, who's opening 2 attacks on the dog rest, it would be a little bit slower. We do have Imperial Shaco, we have Armor Shaco, we have Metal Gurumon, BT1 Metal Gurumon Shaco, BT4 War Greymon Shaco. There's a lot of different Shaco variants, just because that yellow portion of it gives you a lot of versatility in comparison to the green part. The green part of Pyodramon, yes, you have some really cool stuff. Like you could Nidhogg, for example. That'd be kind of hypey. But just in general, it's a lot less versatile than what the yellow portion provides. So I definitely do think that Shaco is probably going to be high B. I can definitely see it creeping into the A tier as well. Anything like from Shaco and above can probably creep into A. To be frank.
Right.
What's the yikes? Where's the yikes? Huh?
No. I said. All right.
Oh, I heard yikes. I was like, damn. Like, what I said wrong?
No.
Am I controversial right now? Like, okay. So moving on, we do have Shivaman. Finally, we're getting back to regular green shenanigans. Shivaman is a very, very, very interesting case. So Shivaman in the Japanese BT8 format, what its primary usage was shutting down Ice Wall and Mega Digimon Fusion. Those were the two most problematic cards in that format. It made it so Blue Hybrid and Yellow Hybrid were top dogs of the entire format, despite all these new decks coming out. Shivaman shut down both of those cards, and so as a result, Shivaman was seeing some play as an anti-meta counter to the Hybrid. Now that both of those cards are gone, Shivaman loses one of its niches in the BT8 format, and so now it has to rediscover an entirely new niche for itself going forward. So you really have to ask yourself, what niche does Shivaman carve, right? Sure, you shut off Hell Scythe, you shut off Mega Death, Chaos Degradation, and that's really cool and everything like that, but a lot of those decks don't need those options to take care of Shivaman. That's just kind of where it gets a little rough. And so I think Shivaman has potential. I definitely do think it has potential, but as of right now, it's really hard for me to see it in the A tier category, just because I mean, like, what does it really have going for it, right? Like, it doesn't have an identity in comparison to everything else. Yes, you can Digivolve a little bit faster. Actually, that's even arguable, because you don't have Jawgrowth built into the deck. You have Digiswarption, sure. But not having Jawgrowth means that your aggression is a lot more limited than those decks. So Shiva, in my opinion, is probably, like, within Shaco territory, probably. What do you think?
I generally agree. My problem with the deck is I wish Shiva condition was not all your Digimon.
Yeah. Wait, is Shiva really all of your Digimon? Wait, what?
Yeah, all of your Digimon needs to be suspended to deny the option play.
No, really?
Yeah.
Is Shiva worse than I remember? Oh
It is
my
worse than I
god!
remember.
Wow, Shiva's actually worse than I remember.
Yeah, that's an issue, because that means that if you're trying to develop board, the rest of your board is susceptible to being removed.
That's so weird.
Say you have like the amazing mega stack with Shiva, and he's like 14 or 15 or whatever, and your opponent just can't possibly swing over it, right? I mean, that's also not really hard to remove, but you also put the rest of your board at risk, and it makes the end of your turn really awkward sometimes, because you can't just like play another Digimon on board for tempo, because it will shut down Shiva option denial. So because of the fact that he needs all your Digimon to be suspended, is a little problematic.
Yeah.
Quite often, it's something that I ran into while testing this deck that just made plays really awkward. But it's definitely not bad. But yeah, it can get really awkward sometimes.
So suddenly Shiva is now below Shaco. That's weird. How crazy how that happened. Wow. It's been a long time since I've touched BT8, and I definitely forgot about that. And yikes, that's bad. But hey, on a more positive note, X-Antibody is definitively a tier 1 deck this format. I would even go as far as to say it's probably the second best deck in the format. It's second or third. It's second or third, in my opinion.
It's really good.
I think
trying to think.
I think it's a really good deck. I think it's a really good deck.
I want to say it's a really good deck, because I do like the deck a lot. But the problem is it still loses to bounce. It still loses to DP minus. It still loses to cards like Chaos the Grey.
All right. Hear me out. Let me give you the logic. Okay. So, the reason why I think X-Antibody is potentially top 3 decks in the BT8 format. Number one of its worst matchup by far in the BT8 format was Yellow and Blue Hybrid, because Ice Wall MDF was an absolutely obnoxious duo of cards. That duo is gone, so that gives a lot more breathing room towards the X-Antibody style of deck. And Yuji is such a huge buff to this deck. It's a bond tamer for X-Antibodies, and that is just going to facilitate a lot of your plays to accelerate. It's a lot of additional card draw as well, and I think because you have more card draw than the average black deck does, right? So, for example, Machine Dramon, your card draw was what, Gurumon Ultimate Connection?
Yeah.
But that costs you resources from hand and whatnot. Black War Greymon, a lot of your card draw is, I mean, you could tie.
On swing. There's a lot of your card draws on swing.
Yeah, it's a lot on swing. You could tie as well, but your tie, setting up your tie doesn't feel as good as setting up a Yuji, because Yuji actively contributes towards your game plan, whereas tie is like bond. Half of it is literally dedicated towards bond. So because
You know what? I remember in the BT07 tier list, I did put I did put Gurumon one tier lower. I wanted to move it down a tier, and I ended up being wrong. That deck ended up performing pretty well.
It did perform really well. It was literally a better Jesmon.
Okay. You know what? I was wrong once. We'll see. I'll accept it this time. Your reasoning makes sense.
My reasoning makes sense. You draw more than the average black deck. You can draw into Breath of the Gods, which absolutely destroys all of these problematic options that you're going to encounter, right? Breath of the Gods is also an absolutely insane blowout versus Imperial Digimon and Security, because then they can't game you, and then you can just clap back. So
yeah, and you know what? At the end of the day, this deck is still a very good investment to get now.
Oh yeah.
Even if this deck doesn't pan out to be a 3 deck in this meta for whatever reason, it's definitely a top tier deck in BT9.
Oh, it's probably the best deck in BT9.
Yeah, this X-Antibody for black is so heavily pushed.
When you get 3 sets of support in a row, yeah, you're probably gonna end up pretty damn good.
Has any other single mechanic or deck get just like 3 continuous wave of support in a row?
I mean, are we not counting Agumon and Gabumons? If we don't, then off of my head...
I mean, they do, but not to this extent, I don't believe.
So technically, just Digimon does from EX2.
Ew. That's a yikes.
Because Justinmon is introduced in EX2, and then you have Raijin, Suijin, and Fujin.
Okay, that's definitely a yikes.
You get them introduced in BT9, and then you get Crit Arm in BT10. So yeah, technically Justinmon actually did get 3 ways of support. So yeah, get wrong, get checked, Justice Kick. Alright. Did anyone else?
I thought my yellow-red Copium
was
bad.
Okay, just because Justimon is low-key a tier 1 deck and everyone refuses to believe it, I will show the world. I will show the world that Justimon is actually the most base deck.
Okay.
But no, aside from that, I can't think of off my head at least any other deck that technically received more support just consistently in a row.
Yeah.
All jokes aside, not even a joke. That's definitely not a joke. I was very serious. Black or Greymon. Black or Greymon now. So the issue with Black or Greymon is that its success is very heavily correlated to the popularity of 3-cost tamer style of decks. So depending on the popularity of hybrid style of decks in particular, right, because of Tommy and Zoe and cards like that, Black or Greymon will see more or less play. So because Black or Greymon is so volatile in its rating, it can either be a high B tier deck or it could be like mid to low A, just depending on how the format goes.
Yeah, I personally can. Here's my reasoning. I think if you build Black War Greymon the way it's currently being built right now, I think it's probably a B tier deck. I think there's adaptation you can make to Black War Greymon, and I've been testing some that's pretty effective into the meta. You can lower the consistency in the deck and play stuff like Rice Greymon. You can play the Tie Tamer to increase your draw count so that you're less vulnerable to, because it is a single stack deck, so you're pretty vulnerable to getting your stuff removed. So you can run more draw pieces to allow that. You run the black-red dual color Digimon. I forgot his name.
The promo or just like an actual black-red?
The level 4.
Cyclomon.
Yeah, Cyclomon. If you remember, Cyclomon has an attack effect of deleting 2k DP. And even you can maybe even try to adapt something, like other form, like there's the Gamamon. The Gamamon will let you delete 3k DP from this set. So you can run those cards as your ESS. So what that will allow you to do is, say you swing with Black War Greymon, and say you have a Greymon Source and a Tie Tamer outright, and Gamamon Source and Rice Greymon Source. I know it's very specific, but you're swinging for 2 to 3 security checks. If your opponent has any body on board that's 5k or less, you can then pop that body to untap War Greymon and swing again. So it has OTK potential from that point of view. The issue with the current War Greymon list I see is a lot would just run Marcus and not enough pressure card. So it became more of a grindy control deck, which is not particularly great into either Yellow Hybrid or Master. So I think the ability to being able to attack your opponent Digimon is pretty huge. Also.
Yeah. So I think we can just call it right now. I think it's probably a low tier A deck for right now, and it can go up or down because it's so volatile. But I do think that with like good adaptations, it can definitely be within upper ranks. I know a lot of people have been talking about a more aggressive variant of this deck using promo Black War Greymon to just outright OTK their opponents.
Yeah, that's another option that you can do as your alternate level 6.
Yeah, so there's a lot of different like ways you can build this deck, just because the Greymon Agumon name is just so much support going for you, right?
Yeah.
And so because of that, you have a lot of different ways you can deck build this. So I would say that right now it's a low A tier deck, but it can go up or down very easily just depending on how the meta pans out. And then finally, we do have Rosin Mod. Okay, so Rosin Mod was a really bad SR in BT7, a really, really bad one. But it did receive support in BT8 that actually makes it its own deck. We haven't tested a lot with this deck, to be very frank, be very upfront and transparent. We haven't tested a lot with this deck because it was not exactly on our radars. But our good friends Nobu and Truepain Gaming, they said, "Hey, this is actually like a really solid deck. You should consider it." I'm sitting here, I'm just like, what's the merit? Like, what is the actual merit? Like, what does this do better than any other deck? Right? Can you think of anything, Zero? Because I really can't.
Don't ask me, man. You put it on the tier list.
Okay, so because I genuinely can't think of anything, but I do trust the boys.
I do trust Nobu's opinion.
Yeah, Nobu's opinion is pretty good. Nobu is pretty good.
Yeah, Nobu's. I do trust his opinion, even though maybe we just don't know the sauce.
Yeah, maybe I've heard a little bit about the sauce. I won't say it now, out of respect towards them. But I've heard a little bit of the sauce, and I'm like sitting here, and I'm like, I mean, maybe that could work, but like,
I mean, realistically, if you like, you can probably just build Rosin Mod. How much investment are you putting into building this?
Yeah,
deck?
it's probably like a $20 deck. Yeah,
$20 is probably high.
Hey, come on, bro, you gotta buy all the old support, dude.
Yeah.
Come on, Rosin Mod's an SR. How much is Rosin Mod?
I'd be surprised if he's more than $1.
Honestly, I'd put money. It's like 70 cents TBH. Yeah, I'm gonna check this real quick. Actually, hold up. All right, guys, we're gonna check this very quickly.
It is 59. It is 25 cents.
Frickle frackle.
Wow. The shipping cost for the card is more than the card itself.
Wow, he is cheap.
The alternate art is $11.
Alright, guys, I mean, if you want to play a $5 deck, I guess Rosin Mod Fury mode is a thing. But either way, thank you all so much for coming to watch this tier list. Both Zero and I really do appreciate this. Hopefully, the meta is both very diverse and just fun in general. I know a lot of people are tired and fatigued of BT7 just because of the prevalence of Blue Hybrid. But hey, luckily for you, Blue Hybrid is not going to be as prevalent in the BT8, hopefully at least. And just overall, I think it's a really fun format. I know it's Zero's personally, it's his favorite format. But yeah, I hope you guys all enjoy it, and thanks for watching.
Yep, thank you.